Through her consulting, training, and coaching, Dethra has motivated clients from National Basketball Association, the Centers for Disease Control, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Salvation Army. Dethra strives to motivate and empower and celebrate her clients as they achieve their desired outcomes. And as again I said before, she is a member of an amazing sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. But yes, I'd just like to welcome Mrs. Giles right now just to come and give you guys a great message.
How are you all? Great. Absolutely. Thank you. Who gave me a hand clap? Bless you, honey. This is my friend over here. I'm going to talk to her for the rest of the evening, okay? So we're here to celebrate an organization that has been giving back. And when Carlicia asked me to speak, I thought long and hard about what I would say and what I would talk to you about to get you to understand the importance of all of us giving back. And I reflected on myself. The question I ask you is, who are you to your community? Do they know who you are? Have you left and never come back? And I say us because when I was talking about this, when I was writing it, I realized I was stepping on my own toes too. Because sometimes I have the piousness to sit back and think what they should do, what they are not, how they could do things differently. Oh, they had too many this, or they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But what is my responsibility? What is our responsibility? What is your responsibility to go back and give back? In my husband's family, and I love how they do this, when I came to his family, it was just an awesome thing to me. But his grandmother, who died at about 106, something like that, she was college educated. But she had this poem that she had her grandchildren recite, and it was called Bring That College Home. And it was a poem that reminded them that they were privileged enough to be college educated, but with that privilege came a huge responsibility, and that was to bring that college home. And home didn't mean your house. Home meant your community. Home meant going back to where you came from and pouring everything that was poured into you back out into those people to make them better. And when I was writing this speech, I had all of these ideas, and I was looking up quotes from these great people, these famous people, to talk about what they said and things we could talk about and walk away with nuggets, right? And I realized that's part of the problem. We think it's somebody else's job to be great. It's somebody else's job to make our communities better. And so we look to these great people. We want to quote MLK, we want to quote Mother Teresa, we want to quote Gandhi. But how about quoting you? Marianne Williamson said, our greatest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And if we are powerful beyond measure, that means that we have to do something. We have to be something. We have to say something. And to do that is one of the most scary things you could ever do, because the fact that the change that needs to happen is waiting on you to make it happen, that's a source of fear for many of us. And so we look to greatness, but how about turning and looking in the mirror and realizing that you are the greatness that you're waiting to see? The community is waiting on you to be great.
Yeah.
The community needs you to say something, be something, and do something to make that same change you complain about, right? And so when I did this, I went to everyone and said, you know what, forget all those great quotes. I want everyday, ordinary people quotes. So I put a post on Facebook and said, tell me what your grandma used to say, right? And so I went back thinking, we're looking for those other people, but some of the very nuggets, those things that got us through, were those very simple sayings that happened right around us. And one quote that every grandmother, I will give it to my grandmother, every grandma who has ever pulled a switch off a tree said this: stop crying before I give you something to cry about, right? And my thing was, isn't that why I'm crying already? Didn't we already go through that process? I already had something to cry about. That's why I'm crying, right? And so let me give you something for us to cry about. I pulled these stats, and it said, first of all, this is stats from the U.S. Department of Education, and it says students with disabilities are more than twice as likely to be suspended than students without disabilities. Black students represent 21% of students with disabilities, though they only make up 18% of the student population. Blacks represent 42% of students referred to law enforcement, 35% of those suspended, 46% of those suspended more than once, and 39% of those expelled, while Hispanic students are only 24% of the population, but make up 42% of students without disabilities who are subjected to seclusion from school. The interesting thing about this is that when it comes to Black and Hispanic students, they are more often expelled for things like disrespect, defiance, and obscenity, as opposed to violence. When we think about those things, defiance, obscenity, disruption, isn't that what children do? Right? But those kids, our kids, are expelled for those types of things. Why does that happen? I have a little boy, 7-year-old Daniel, who keeps us on our toes. And this year, Daniel started first grade, and when Daniel got to first grade, we had the teachers sending notes home, and things were happening. We had some marks that we didn't like. The first thing my husband and I did is we got suited and booted. I mean, we were flying, right? We went to the school, suits on, looking professional, and we went in as a couple to talk to the teachers. That conversation with the teachers, with two parents showing up, changed the course of his education. Because he was on his way to being labeled, secluded from classes, and on his way to meeting this statistic. But parents showing up made the difference. Everyone does not have the luxury that Daniel has of having two parents show up in suits. Because some of them have single fathers who are working 2 jobs and can't make their way to school. But guess who can show up? You can show up. It doesn't take much to be great. It doesn't take much to make a difference. And there are so many little boys like Daniel who are brilliant, testing gifted, bored in class, and being a disruption, and they're being excluded, not just from class, but from education, from a future, from a life, from a family, the very thing we're sitting in here enjoying because someone did not step up. And that someone doesn't have to be their dad. That someone does not have to be their mom. That someone can be you, identifying that one child who you will make sure does not get left behind in this child left behind system, right? The other thing I remember is my grandmother, when growing up, when I got cold, she would give us Vicks Vapor Rub. Now, Carlisha and Andrew, don't be bothered by this, right? She would give us Vicks Vapor Rub out of the container and have us swallow it. And I'm like, Grandma, the container says for external use only. And she said, baby, those people don't know what they talk about. And I was like, the people with PhDs and MDs? She's like, yeah. I'm like, you know they tested this stuff on fruit flies, and then on lab rats, and then on primates, and then they did clinical trials on humans, but you want me to believe you, who does not even have a high school diploma, that they don't know what they're talking about. She's like, girl, swallow that stuff. Right? And the truth is, sometimes they don't know what they're talking about. They told us things that aren't true. They told us that your child is your child and you mind your business and take care of your family, right? And we believe them. We believe that we were supposed to grow up, go to college, and leave the hood and not come back. And don't look back, don't look behind you, keep going forward. We believe them, but they don't know what they're talking about. I was talking to one of my coaching clients, and she said, you know what, Dethra, it's lonely at the top. And my response to her was, no, it's not. It's lonely at the top because you didn't take anyone with you.
Amen.
Because if you take everyone that's willing to go with you, they may not look like you. They may not be in the same class as you. But if you take those people with you that are willing to do the work, the top does not have to be lonely. It's our responsibility to take others with us, to go back and pull people up. That's why Harriet Tubman went back. She was already free. She had no obligation to go back into slave country where she could be enslaved, killed, maimed, raped. She went back because she felt like she had a responsibility to go back and free other people. We're the Harriet Tubmans. We have a responsibility to go back and free others, right? Another quote from a grandma was Grandma Thelma Harvey, who said, if you want to soar with eagles in the morning, you can't hoot with owls at night.
All right.
The problem with that is we're the eagles. But if all you have around you are owls, how else do you know to be? We have to go back and show what eagles do. We have to go back and teach people how to soar. There's this old analogy. There was this eagle walking around with these chickens, and he was around pecking with the chickens like the other chickens, like he was a chicken. And they said, you know you can fly? And he didn't. He had no clue he could fly because he had never seen anyone soar. All he saw was chickens pecking on the ground, looking for scraps, not knowing that he was supposed to have the eagle's eye view of the world. We have to go back. We can't let them only see owls. We have to go back and show them that in the morning you can soar with eagles, and that's our responsibility. Another responsibility we have came from grandmother Annie Willie Goodwin. And it sounds like a real old grandmother name, right? Annie Willie, right? She said, if you use something long enough, it'll wear out and get tired. And that's what I want you to think about. What is your role? What are you supposed to be doing? Because Andrew and Carlisha can't do it all. If we use them up long enough, they'll get tired and wore out, and we can't have that happen. What will you do? When you leave here, what will you do differently to help the movement happen? Where is DDI where you are? How about having a chapter where you are? Because we need tons of things, but we need you to be active. So think about where you are, what you will do, and how you will make a difference. And the last quote I have comes from a good friend of mine who actually lives in D.C. now. Her name is Cynthia Moore, and when I first met her, she was a spitfire. I mean, she's an artist, so she just bleeds art, right? And the one thing she said to us that has always stayed with me, she was over our dance ministry at the time at our church, and she said, honey, salvation is free, but ministry costs. And so what I want you to think about is we absolutely need your prayers. We want you to be active, but we also need for you to reach in your pocket and donate.
Amen.
Because salvation is free, but ministry costs. What you see happening, what Andrew showed you all on that screen, that's ministry.
Yeah.
And every single event that DDI does is free of charge except for this one, because it's raising money. So when people come and get tested, when they get literacy information, when they get scholarships to go to college and become that eagle who comes back, that's all free to them, but it costs something. And that cost is borne by the people who can afford to do it. That cost is borne by us people who've already learned how to be eagles, and we're saying that it's our responsibility to give back. So today I want you to think about, what will you do? How will you make things happen? What will you say and do and be that makes DDI continue to move forward? Because we are eagles and we have a responsibility. We have a view from up top and we know where the pains are, and it's our job to heal those pains. It's what we came here to do. So along with having fun, in the center of your table is a little envelope. So we're gonna need you to fill up those envelopes tonight to make sure that we are now getting the people who are out there who thought they were chickens. We want to make sure they learn that they're eagles so that they can soar as well. So thank you all for listening to me this evening. I pray that you are blessed and that you do something different to make a change in your community, and that you are the greatness that you want to see happen.